It's not often that I rewrite a High Holy Day sermon the day before I give it. But while the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Friday was a monumental loss for our country, her life was a poignant example of my sermon message for today. The title of today's sermon is, "Why Can't We All Just Get Along?" and is in and of itself both a serious question and a rhetorical one. Among the many notable aspects of Justice Ginsburg's storied career was her famously close relationship and friendship with fellow late Justice Antonin Scalia. It was an unlikely pairing. Justice Ginsburg, widely considered a feminist and a liberal cultural icon due to her years fighting for women's rights and her vocal dissents during her tenure in the Supreme Court, and Justice Scalia, known as a conservative lion on the court, were almost never on the same side for a decision. Neither shied away from voicing their opinions, yet their families were known to spend every New Year's holiday together. Justice Scalia's son, Chris, commented yesterday, "I think we were all aware that it publicly seemed like an odd couple, but you know, when they were together, it never felt like that. They obviously held their views very strongly, and they didn't let those very different views undermine their very deep friendship." So if Justices Ginsburg and Scalia could get along, I ask again, why can't we all just get along? It is a serious question, one that is ripe for this moment in our country's history and ripe for this moment in our Jewish calendar. The High Holy Day season demands of us to examine not just our deeds, but our thoughts. And it seems that one of the problems of our society is that people leave their thoughts and ideas and assumptions unexamined. We fall in love with them and cannot let them go. Right about now, I imagine you are thinking about that tangential friend who you wrote off or defriended or stopped following because of their politics, and saying he needs to examine his thoughts or she needs to do some soul searching in the hopes that that person will somehow get back onto our right track. But I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about you. I've heard so many times in the past couple of years, because this person holds these particular beliefs, I can no longer be friends with him or her. Our problem is that we cannot get beyond the 1 or 2 or 20 differences to be able to share the 20 or 2 or even just 1 commonality. There's a story about when one of Justice Scalia's former clerks, Judge Jeffrey Sutton, visited him shortly before the justice's death. It happened to be Justice Ginsburg's birthday, and Scalia had purchased 24 roses for his friend Ruth. Scalia told Sutton that he would need him to bring them to her. Justice Sutton started teasing his mentor. "When was the last time she sided with you in any important 5-4 decision?" He responded quite candidly that some things are more important than votes. In a conversation last night with two of our trustees, Jason Rindler and Lenny Feldman, we talked about our own congregational community, the differences within it, and the diversity within the Jewish people. Jason commented that anti-Semites don't care if a Jew is a Republican or a Democrat. Lenny responded that it is far more important that we all be on Team Jew. So let me tell you where this has hit me personally. Why is it that I feel that I can no longer have conversations about substantive issues? I believe that for Judaism to remain relevant, not as some small piece of life's pie, but as a living, breathing framework that is relevant in all aspects of our life, it must speak to the issues of the day. And yet, when the Jewish values that I share somehow disagree with your particular stance, it's taken as a statement of rejection by me as your rabbi or as Judaism as a whole. I'm not rejecting you as a congregant. I'm bringing my understanding of Jewish tradition to bear. And if you disagree with me, bring your Jewish sources and challenge my thinking. I mentioned yesterday that one of the most crucial Jewish sensibilities for us in this moment is the idea of Elu ve'elu. The rabbinic version of Supreme Court justices of their times, Rabbis Hillel and Shammai, were known to debate and disagree on almost every legal decision. And the Talmud affirms and literally preserves those differences. American author Seth Godin writes, "Everyone, without exception, has found some things to not believe in. Things that are demonstrably true, and we just don't want to accept. A bit like a fingerprint, each person's pattern of disbelief is probably unique. You might believe that water is made of atoms, but that the moon is made of cheese. It's hard to predict. But the interesting question is, what has to happen for you to change your mind? What standard of proof, from what source is sufficient for you to accept something that you were sure wasn't true as being true? In light of today's topic, Godin asks, what is it going to take for us to allow ourselves to have a different thought about someone? Let me give you 3 answers. First one, let's stop being so sensitive. We can take something as being personally important without taking it personally. 2, get out of the silos and echo chambers that only allow you to confirm what you already believe. Open yourself up to differing opinions. And finally, 3, we need to elevate our conversation beyond the lowest common denominator. If you're going to compare someone to a Nazi or call another person a cop killer, you better bring me something other than rhetoric. Let's have a substantive debate and then enjoy a glass of wine and a good meal together. Let's avoid the cheap shots and easy slings that are found all over social media. But we need to go further. This summer, I started reading an incredible book titled Caste: The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. She suggests that the reasons we don't get along is because we, quote, have an underlying sense that we are better than others. We don't see the inherent dignity of others. A caste system is based not just on race, but on a sense of social order. I remember a time when everybody knew their place. It is deeply ingrained in the fabric of our society, and it has been lying dormant for years until it breaks free and back to life. We are like homeowners that have inherited an old house on a piece of land that is beautiful on the outside, but with flaws that have been left unattended. Cracks were patched, but the deeper ruptures have been waved away for decades. Choosing not to look is done at your own peril. Whatever is lurking will fester whether you choose to look or not. Ignorance is no protection from the consequences of inaction. Many people may rightly say, I had nothing to do when all of this was started. I have nothing to do with the sins of the past. My ancestors didn't attack indigenous people. My ancestors didn't own slaves. But here we are, the current occupants of this property, with stress cracks and bowed walls. We are the heirs to whatever is right or wrong with it. And any further deterioration is, in fact, on our hands. Unaddressed, the ruptures will not fix themselves. When we live in an old house, we come to adjust to the idiosyncrasies and outright dangers. We learn to step over the rotting wood tread on the staircase. The awkward becomes acceptable, and the acceptable becomes merely inconvenient. Live long enough with it, and the unthinkable becomes normal. Exposed over the generations, we learn to believe the incomprehensible is the way that life is supposed to be. That is our unexamined life. Let me leave you with one last thought. As someone who grew up practicing earthquake drills in school, I was particularly moved by Isabel Wilkerson's explanation. We have long defined earthquakes as arriving from the collision of tectonic plates that force one wedge of earth beneath the other, believing that the internal shoving match under the surface is all too easily recognizable. What scientists have only recently discovered is that the more familiar earthquakes, those that are easily measured while in progress and instantaneous in their destruction, are often preceded by longer, slow-moving, catastrophic destructions rumbling 20 miles or more beneath us, too deep to be felt and too quiet to be measured. They have long gone undetected because they work in silence, unrecognized until a major quake announces itself on the surface. Just as physicians do not treat patients until they take their history, so we need to examine our individual and collective histories to discover what is behind our sicknesses. In discovering that history, we cannot ball up in a corner or forbid to mention it. We must educate ourselves. We learn the consequences and obstacles, the options and treatment. And then, with humility and resolve, we must act on that treatment plan. That is called tshuva, and now is the time to do it.